So we got Gabrielle, Ashley, and Julia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Julia.
Julia, yeah.
Julia, Okay, that comes natural to me. Okay. And you're from Capitan?
Yep. Artesia.
I mean, you really live in Artesia, or are you actually just staying there?
Well, I'm from Artesia.
Okay, all right. Okay, and then Las Cruces, right? Okay. You ready to go?
Whenever you are.
Have you been going? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Congressman Pierce. We're recording from Washington, D.C. We were supposed to be home this weekend, but instead we stayed here to work on the debt ceiling. I've got three not so innocent bystanders behind me. These are all interns working in the office. They're all from New Mexico. Intern is a really good word here in Washington. It means free labor in Latin. So we have, first of all, we have Gabrielle. She's from Capitan, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes, okay, affirmative. And then we have Ashley from Artesia. She only gets to the A. If Gabrielle should be from something that starts with a G. So Ashley from Artesia, and then we have Julia from Las Cruces. So they're here all summer long working in the office and doing great work for the state of New Mexico. We're involved in this town hall meeting, and we took questions during the last 24 hours. I'm just going to read through them and give you quick answers to those. Looks like we're losing our interns here off the screen, but thank you all and appreciate the work you're doing. First, Lynn from Angel Fire asks, what concrete immediate steps have you taken to alleviate the economic turmoil in Luna County? There are several things going on. Renewable energies are fairly large in the southern part of the state. Luna County is well positioned for geothermal energy. Sapphire Energy is actually working there in Luna County to try to establish some project. We're supportive of that. There's a solar array which could be taking shape. And then biofuels, there's another project there. The Border Foods is always asking for people. In a town with 30% unemployment in Deming, they cannot always find enough people, which tells me that at some point we have to deal with the people who will not come off of unemployment or benefits to go to work. Rod asks, why hasn't anyone considered a reduction in workforce for the federal government? He continues that from my perspective, you could lay off 20% of the payroll and we in here in New Mexico wouldn't even notice the difference. It's one of the things that I've talked about a lot, Rod. Number one, I use the example of the Lincoln National Forest because I had someone come up to me in an early campaign saying he by himself, he was the Forest Service in Lincoln County. He was the one over the entire forest there. Today it takes 140 people to run that same forest. You have a growth not of 100%. 100% would be from 1 to 2. This is from 1 to 142, and every agency has kind of mushroomed like that. Most of our budgets spend 80 to 90% of the entire budget on labor, and I think that you're right on point. We must at some point have a forensic audit of our government and start looking at the ways that we can trim the number of things they do. Sometimes these positions are not productive. Sometimes people, well, right now in the U.S. Postal Service, I forget, but it seems like over 1,000 people are paid every day to come to work. They have to go into a room and sit there because there's no job for them to do. They're not allowed to read books. They're not allowed to look at their video. They're not allowed to be on their computer. They simply have to go in and spend 8 hours looking at the walls in order to be paid. That's because the union contracts won't allow them to be laid off. We need to look seriously at looking at every aspect of our government and begin to get it in control. Vaughn writes, having recently spoken with several small business owners here in Valencia County, they're saying almost exclusively that they would benefit a lot more if customers had more cash than they would from any kind of tax relief. How do you address the fact that businesses need cash flow more than anything that's been legislatively proposed thus far? First of all, when we increase taxes here in Washington, we take away that spending power away from the consumers. And so always I favor tax cuts for exactly the reason that Vaughn suggests. We should be giving money back to people so that they can just feed their families. When they do that, they spend money with local businesses, and that is the most important thing we can do. However, there's a very insidious thing going on in Washington right now. That is the printing of money. We can't borrow enough money to finance the government China won't lend us enough. Japan can't lend us anymore. Our own taxpayer, the citizens of America, are not buying the treasury bills which fund the government. And so in order to fund it now, we're printing money. As we print money, that means that the dollars in your pocket, the dollars that you have to spend, are worth less. That's causing the tremendous ramp up in prices that we're seeing nationwide and worldwide, frankly. That's what's going on around the world. Governments everywhere are spending more money than they're bringing in. They're having to print money. It's causing inflation. It's putting tremendous pressure on families just to make ends meet. The most important thing that we can do for every small business is to stabilize the currency, to cause inflation to stop. That's the most important thing we can do. Jack from Ruidoso writes, Congressman Pierce, I'm having trouble believing that your fellow congressmen and women have the gall to say, if we have to cut our budgets, we'll have to lay off people in our offices, in our districts. My biggest question is, if every member in Congress is receiving free health care, meals, and living in their congressional suites, why do they need a vehicle leasing budget of $1,000 a month? I tightened my belt and survived. Why can't your fellow congressmen and women do the same thing? I voted for, and we've actually passed and taken a 5% decrease for all congressional accounts. We have what is called a member's account, and that was decreased by 5% last year. We just voted today on another 6.4% decrease. We think that we must lead the way from Washington with cuts, and we're doing that. Now, if I could address a couple of things in the text of your question, you talk about us getting free health care. We do not. We have to pay even more than probably you do. I suspect that we subtract about $500 a month from our paycheck that we give to the government to pay for our health care. I recently was talking with a friend who was extremely upset that we in Congress got such a good deal. When we got through, he was actually paying less at his company than what we were paying in the federal government. I think that we should be responsible for paying for our own health care, and we do. He talks about free meals. It's against the law for us to accept even a meal from anyone. And so I don't myself want to risk an ethics violation over taking a meal. We don't get meal allowances here in the Capitol. And then talk about living in congressional suites. My wife and I had to buy a house. It's 14 by 60 foot wide. In New Mexico, we call them trailer houses. This is called a row house here in Washington. They don't even come with the wheels here. At least in New Mexico, we know how to rig up a trailer house. It's a two-story affair, so I tell people that we actually live in a double-wide stacked on top of itself. 14 by 60. There are no congressional suites. We don't get free living accommodations. But those are common misconceptions that people have, and I simply try to update them. But I do believe that Washington should be tightening its belt. An over 11% decrease for us in Congress in the last year, I think, is leading the way. Dean writes, if the House is going to support or oppose, or is the House going to support or oppose the unreasonable cuts to our military defense infrastructure and veterans benefits? There are some areas one can cut in defense, but why is defense being targeted by such a large margin? In parentheses, he lists at least $400 million in the gang of 6 proposals, especially when we face current deficits, conflicts, rising China, etc. Dean is right on point here. Of all the things that we should cut, defense spending should be among the last. We're facing unprecedented threats from China, from North Korea. Iran is developing longer-range weapons, is dabbling in nuclear weapons. It is an extraordinarily risky, dangerous time in the world. I don't think we should be giving cuts to our military who are serving, to our armed forces who are fighting the fight. I do believe that the Department of Defense has tremendous waste. It took 10 years for us to decide which tanker that we're going to fly. That is simply bureaucratic waste. Get the pictures, get the specifications, make a decision, and move on, and quit feeding that bureaucracy. I think these are the things that Americans are saying, let's get control of and stop them now. Mary Beth writes, when is Congress going to address President Obama's actions, which are clearly unconstitutional? This is actually a point I brought up in our conference about 3 weeks ago. I asked the Speaker of the House, when are we going to make a stand? The action in Libya was completely unconstitutional. I believe that we should have taken a stronger stance. The President said that the Speaker said that he's going to stay focused on the debt ceiling and on the issues that could sink the country right now. He says he's concerned about it, but he's going to deal with the larger issues. It continues to be a concern of mine that the President is forgetting the constitutional restraints that he has on his office, and I, for one, have been willing to bring it up and raise the issue, fight the fight if we need to have it. I'll continue to do that, but thank you for your question. The next question is from Corey, who asks a very long question. First, there is something that is there something that can be done with unemployment benefits? I have seen several applicants come through the door only to pick up an application to show they're trying to get a job, but they don't want one. I had one that made the comment that he only wanted the application to show that he was meeting his quota to stay on benefits. I gladly snatched it back to give it to someone who really wanted to work. The oil field is booming out here, and we need good people that are willing to work. Get them off the couch, back into the workforce, paying back what they're taking from us. If you watched USA Today, about a week and a half ago, they had a front page article. 11% of the people on unemployment are fraudulently claiming benefits. That's a tremendous problem for us. $16 billion a year is what it cost us last year because of this. But additionally, Corey mentions a fact that I saw frequently. People did not want to get jobs. They simply wanted to get the check mark to where they could continue to get their unemployment benefits. I'm drafting legislation right now because I continue to see it at this current time in New Mexico that says if you're offered a job, you're on unemployment, you're offered a job, and the job is a suitable one, and you don't take it, then you should lose your benefits. I do not believe that the country can continue to ask every family to work, to struggle, to make ends meet, and still pay people not to work. If people can't find work, that's fine. That's what it's for. But this was always supposed to be a bridge, not a way of life. And we have people that are staying on it. He then asked a second question, is there anything in the works that would require drug testing to receive the handouts, such as welfare, Medicaid, WIC, unemployment? That alone could actually balance a budget. Again, this is a point that we've been making for the last 2 years. That we are encouraging people not to clean up their lives, and we're encouraging them to stay in a life of dependence on the government. We actually are drafting legislation on this one too. It's very complex to get it exactly right. We've been trying for several months. But I believe that if people can't pass the drug screen, the same drug screen that you and I have to pass to go to work every day, that if they can't pass that, they should not be allowed to get benefits. I believe if we will stop encouraging bad behavior by giving benefits to people who are taking drugs, then I think that we can begin to clean up the problems of the deficit, the debt, and a nation that must find workers for the jobs. Tom asked in a different...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can we just have you straighten your shirt? You got...
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Tom asks, what is your response to the Moody's threat to downgrade the credit rating of the state of New Mexico if the federal debt ceiling is not raised? This is a very important question. Talked to Moody's yesterday. They ascertained that the nation's bonds are in threat of being downgraded. The problem, though, is that we're spending too much in Washington. The problem, someone said that to extend the debt ceiling in order to solve the problem would be like increasing the blood alcohol limit to cure alcoholism. I'm sorry, but we're just not going to do that. We need to take a serious look at the ways that we're wasting and spending money. There are programs that could be cut that would hurt no one. I don't think that we have to take away from the poor. I don't think that we have to take away from the elderly. I don't think that we have to stop paying our soldiers. I believe that we can find the fraud, the waste, and the corruption in the government in plenty of amounts that would cure the problem. The second thing that I absolutely believe we have to deal with is to create jobs. We are not going to be able to balance the economy simply by spending cuts. What we must do is create jobs to where there are more workers paying in their share of taxes, and it's that way that we increase the size of the income coming to the government, and we balance that way. So some spending cuts, some long-term cuts, that's the cap on spending, and balance the budget. Cut, cap, and balance is what we've passed out of the House, and that is the answer for us long-term. But we've got to grow the economy in order to create those new jobs and get people off of benefits. That's a very important piece of the equation. Jerry is asking, what is the current status of the sand dune lizard listing? The Eunice City Council is going to give final approval to our budget tonight. Why can't the Congress of our country not pass a budget? I work 80 to 100 hours a week in the oil patch, and I still find time to diligently work on city issues. Jerry brings up three important points here. First of all, the lizard, the listing of the lizard as an endangered species has the potential to kill the entire economy in southern New Mexico. It would shut down the nuclear enrichment facility just outside of Eunice. It would shut down the oil and gas. It would shut down agriculture, and that's pretty well the economy of southern New Mexico. It says, the listing says that anything that vibrates the surface would cause potential harm to the habitat for the lizard, and that they would have to stop that. As you know, almost everything we do in Lee County vibrates the soil, vibrates the sand. I grew up around those lizards. Used to walk in the sand hills, in fact still do. Used to see them